With terrible huge cephalopod forms and cuboid heads filled with thorns and covered sharp pointy tusks not unlike thick branches, with pitch-black large round eyes and their equally large heads measuring between 10 to 12 cubits long, the myth of the large great Kraken sea monster has plagued dreams and stimulated young sailors to adventure. However, let's take a minute to appreciate how the story started. Sailors who wove tales of courageous battles with the Krakens. These stories always happen to start with merchant ships and end with magnificently rich sailors. In this video, we are finally going to show the world what the Kraken really looks like, discuss contemporary myths concerning the Kraken, and last but most importantly, we're going to try to understand why sailors invented the Kraken. But before we get started, be sure to click the like button, subscribe and click the notification bell for more amazing content. In the early years where boats were the major means of transportation, sailing, done if only land was visible, was mostly coastal, from island to island. However, founded in the early 1600s, the big Dutch East India Trading Company made advancements in sea expeditions, moving beyond the close sea waters into the Great Ocean. Trading Company was said to be formless, with temporary workers hired by chance, most often hopeless men running from bad situations and looking for steady income. These men end up as crew members on sailor ships. On the ships, accurate information on goods were rarely recorded or tracked. Unlike modern ships equipped with high-tech navigation and surveillance systems, most 16th century ships could brag of were logbooks. Because of this, when goods or even a whole ship was recorded missing, the closest thing to an official report is a sailor's word. It should be noted that the first officially recorded sighting of a Kraken was on the 13th of November 1861 by a Frederick Marie Boyle, a ship's second-in-command. He spread his horrible tale to anyone who would hear it, brandishing the apparent tip of the Kraken monster's tail as evidence of the horrible story. He claimed that due to the Kraken's huge size, its body sunk into the water. In 1810, the ship logs from a vessel, the Celestina Show, reported that an at least 60-meter shiny spot was noticed in the water. They believed it was the Kraken, despite the stunning lack of evidence. Each time the sailors believed they saw the Kraken, it came with reports of horrifying and often incredible new features. The features always happen to differ from story to story, with some describing them as 9, 20 or even 40 meters long. Gave the impression the Kraken were of different types or multiple personalities. Almost a year later, an English ship on a voyage from Valparaiso to the American shores was reported to have almost been lost after ramming into, wait for it, the great Kraken sea monster. Going by the reports of the crew, they noticed a huge form rising beneath the ship. They claimed it was as big as an island. They reported that the ship crashed into it at full steam, causing the ship to shred the monster and leading to its return underwater. Fact remains that people were more likely to listen to entertaining tales of the Kraken than how well the weather held during the sailors' voyage. Sailors would hold their audience not only with the Kraken tales but with stories of six-headed Hydra and other mythical creatures. For example, people paid a great deal of money to see a mermaid skeleton exhibition with their own eyes, going as far as to pay over $12 a week, which was considered a lot of money back then, to rent it. It turned out that the creative sailors had simply moulded a monkey's torso and a large fishtail together to make the skeleton. The sailors made a lot of money from proclaimed Kraken tentacles, which people were willing to spend their life savings on. The Kraken also helped the sailors make money in other ways. Because there were no official requirements to report lost ships, the scheming sailors took advantage of it. However, the increased frequency of puzzling ship disappearances necessitated the need for an accounting system that would show that merchant ships carrying valuable cargo were truly the most affected and provide an official report for unsatisfied customers. However, the smart sailors managed to skip over the accounting system. The origins of the Kraken lie in the early Scandinavian and Icelandic folklore, but it became famous and well known during the large-scale development and expansion of the shipping trade. In 1872, a two-masted merchant sailing ship, the Mary Celeste, mysteriously disappeared with all its crew and 2,000 kegs of denatured alcohol being transported to Italy from New York. When the ship was eventually found, both crew and goods were gone. Many believed that a brig ship, the De Gracia, had hijacked them. However, aside a lifeboat, sextant, which was a navigational tool, and the captain's personal chronometer, every other belonging and cargo remained on the ship intact. Sailors who discovered the lost ship claimed it was a lucky find and sued for a reward from the owner of the brigantine. It was eventually discovered that the captains of De Gracia and Mary Celeste were good friends and likely orchestrated the whole event just to receive insurance payments. Finding swindlers and fraudsters had become easier, hence they started to find new ways to defraud, like accusing someone of something that's rather impossible to find and terrifying to think about, for example a gigantic squid-like creature with magical powers. So whenever sailors went off course, delayed goods or fled, they conveniently blamed the Kraken, claiming the monster scrambled their minds or deceived the ship's cartographers who thought the monster was an island that could not be found after the first time. Let's go through some real stories and find out if the Kraken was truly to blame as claimed by the sailors. The richest man in history, Musa, sent out on an expedition to the Atlantic Ocean with the might of his wealth, boasting a fleet of 2,000 ships equipped with cargo and gear worth a fortune and a crew of thousands of men, women and slaves. However, not one person or ship ever returned from the expedition. The big question was, how is this possible? A common myth is that the Kraken got to them and destroyed the lot of them. When leaving on the expedition, Musa's generosity with his ships caused the economy of the state of Mali to crash, when the apparent run-in with a Kraken caused the loss of 15 tons of pure gold loaded on the SS Central America, valued at $150 million. The real cause of the wreck was never found, but old stories still claim involvement of the Kraken. Though unsure of the cause, the tragedy resulted in the first global economic crisis. The most marine casualties recorded when the activities of the East India Trading Company were full-blown. Aside ships supposed to remain overseas, only a suspicious 94 ships ever returned home. Perhaps the stories of monsters waiting in the deep seas scared them off, but fact remains there are more reasonable explanations for the occurrences. Mali, Musa's brother, inherited all of his brother's properties and wealth, so it's not unlikely that Musa was assassinated by his dear brother for his affluence. Or maybe Musa decided to settle on a faraway island and forget all the troubles of reality with his crew. It could also be that investors of the SS Central America pulled the same scam as the owners of the Mary Celeste. In the trading company, 39 ships were reported wrecked, 7 burned and 12 captured by pirates or other enemies. Most of the ships were carrying Asian luxury goods like porcelain tableware, rare fabrics, and what could be considered more valuable than gold, spices. Food in England was practically tasteless before the importation of spices. The ships that brought them in were considered extremely valuable and were prime targets for thieves. Though tales of defeat were not easy to get from a sailor's mouth, especially at the hands of pirates and outlaws, as opposed to when it's at the supposed hands, tentacles, of the legendary Kraken. The myth of the Kraken entered the English and French folklores when a French naturalist, Pierre Denis de Montfort, suggested that ships reported missing had been attacked by a giant octopus. The true story was just slightly less exciting, and that the French ships were being captured by the English as they sailed to the West Indies coast. Of the 4 English ships and 6 captured French ships, not one returned after the British Admiralty learned the truth of the events. It was such a big deal that Pierre Denis had to give up his scientific career. That was how the Kraken became an excuse box for crooked sailors. However, the question now focuses not on the sailors, but to all people who believe in the existence of the Kraken. As mentioned earlier, contemporary technology has fully eliminated the need for unverified sailors' tales as official reports, as they can now be accounted for, right? What myths still exist about the Kraken today, told by modern sailors? Before we harshly judge those that believe the myths of the old days, a self-check is important. After all, the problem of a cancelled or delayed shipping order still annoys thousands daily. It's easy to think that with all the high tech available these days, our shipping system should be perfect, or nearly so. However, over the last 7 years, ships have progressively lost a lot of cargo. For example, the 1,000 boxers lost on the high seas in 2020, and the countless number of boxers that have fallen overboard due to unforeseen situations, leading to the disruption of supply chain of famous brands like Amazon, Tesla, Honda, and hundreds of manufacturers looking to deliver goods ranging from smartphones, PCs, tyres, cars, and a lot more. The accidents could not be pinpointed to an exact cause, with people believing it was a storm, loose chain, slippery deck, or lots of other reasons, but blaming the Kraken was now very unacceptable. About 2 years ago, researchers on US waters captured an image using their special deep-sea camera, Medusa, of an abnormally large squid. Almost immediately, a mysterious and some believe supernatural lightning hit the ship's metal pole, putting all their data at risk. But fortunately the systems were off at that point, preserving the data. However, the event caused some to believe that what was spotted and photographed as evidence was not just a squid, but the likely return of the Kraken monster. Even if it is truly the Kraken stealing modern cargo, it can probably only use 8 PCs at a time, except new myths tell us they've grown extra tentacles. Regardless, the Kraken was the perfect excuse to justify the loss of cargo. The phrase, "it was krakened," was discovered to be used after a sailor encountered a Kraken. For example, "I don't know how the cargo got loose, boss. Must have been krakened." Tell us what you think might have happened to the Kraken, your theories about the myth and how it began, or your failed orders that might have been krakened by an opportunist crew, or even the Great Kraken. See you next time.